In the video game industry, baseball player-induced failures are considered especially heinous. On this channel, the dedicated me who investigates these embarrassing fiascos is me. I'm the one doing the video. This is my story. Baseball, the baseball player's delight, and few were ever as delighted as one Curt Schilling, a star, a champion, an outright legend among fans, and a bunch of other good things to be. Baseball player-wise, Curt Schilling is no slouch. We're talking about a guy who once pitched 2 games with an ankle that was actively bleeding right there in the wide open for everyone to see, and he performed well enough that it actually helped lead his team, the Boston Red Sox, to win a World Series. For the first time it had done so in almost a century. The guy was a big deal, basically. How big? $114 million net worth at the end of his career big. His next move? A dip of his toes into nothing less than a world of power-ups, Princess Peach, and Captain John Soap McTavish. That's right, video games. It was all there, the perfect post-sports career branch out. Video games had been a rising industry for basically forever, aside from a few periods, and for Mr. Schilling, there seemed to be a slot wide open for a new company to rise, and for money to be made. In order to accomplish that, Schilling drew on his former career to guide him to one conclusion. To win big, you needed star power. What kind of star power? Well, among others, comic creator Todd McFarlane, who invented Spawn, and prolific fantasy author R.A. Salvatore. Together, as well as a bunch of other normal people who don't have Wikipedia pages, Schilling had the crew. And in the great state of Massachusetts, Schilling reached his own proverbial Plymouth Rock, planting the flag of Green Monster Games, the name being a baseball reference, which was then later changed to 38 Studios, the name also being a baseball reference. Guy loves baseball. With this new studio, Schilling began testing the waters of what game they should make first. With this investment, they could go in any direction imaginable. A sports game? No, that'd be too on the nose, and thank fucking God, because I'm getting tired of writing the word baseball in the script. You see, Curt Schilling had, during his sports career, become entirely enthralled by the massive multiplayer online role-playing of MMORPGs. Let's think back to the old times for a second here. Blizzard right now, it's not doing too hot, but in the mid to late 2000s and even up until like the mid 2010s, there's a whole different ballgame, goddammit. The idea of a World of Warcraft killer was everywhere. Like, you had people trying to dethrone them constantly. You had titles like Rift, Terra, Ion, Warhammer Online, Wildstar, Lord of the Rings Online, EverQuest Next, The Secret World. None of these obviously reached the heights that World of Warcraft was reaching, though. I mean, shit, Blizzard had over 10 million concurrent subscribers from 2007 to 2011. That's over 10 million people giving Blizzard at least $13 a month every month. That's a lot of fucking money. Like, it makes complete sense that other people would want a slice of that pie. So when the time came for Mr. Curt Schilling to pick a genre of game to shovel money into, it was not first-person shooter time. It wasn't even third-person shooter time. It was, in fact, World of Warcraft time. Work had begun on Schilling's first big title, a working title, Project Copernicus.
The challenge is not simply in publishing a game, but in publishing a game that changes the landscape of the online marketplace.
And to change that landscape, Schilling needed a team that was absolutely ready to show off its A-game.
Our company motto is, if you can't do it better than it's ever been done before, work for someone else.
Let me set a little scene for you. The year is 2010. The place is Curt Schilling's Medfield, Massachusetts home. Curt Schilling is hosting a fundraiser for some, like, completely unrelated project that has nothing to do with anything else in this video. One of his party guests is then Governor of Rhode Island, Don Carcieri. You see, Rhode Island in 2010 had 12% unemployment, which is a lot. He needed to generate jobs. More than that, he needed to generate hype. Rhode Island hype. Curt Schilling listened to all of this, and he sensed an opportunity. What if, he thought, 38 Studios and the state of Rhode Island could reach a mutually beneficial agreement. And they did. A, $75 million fucking dollar agreement. Yes, Rhode Island Governor Don Carcieri decided to give Curt Schilling's 38 Studios $75 million to move from Massachusetts to Providence, Rhode Island, and set up his prospective WoW killer, Project Copernicus, to propel the tiny state into a brand new, more profitable future than ever. It was a Hail Mary for sure, but it seemed so credible at the time for everyone involved. Fucking somehow. Yeah, Schilling may have been brand new to the video game scene. Yeah, many may have tried to slay the Goliath of World of Warcraft before and failed. Badly. But to Rhode Island's political scene, Curt Schilling seemed like the guy for the job. 38 Studios expanded very quickly, not only hiring new workers, but actually offering to buy the homes of their Massachusetts workers to help facilitate their move to Rhode Island, even covering mortgage costs while those workers were selling their Massachusetts homes. And that's obviously fucking unheard of. Like, that's crazy. And with a surprisingly decent benefits program which included health benefits, travel expenses, custom bags, free meals, and even personalized high-end gaming laptops. Top all that off with a promise of a 50-50 profit share between himself and everybody else. And Curt Schilling was throwing around a lot of that $75 million and a bunch of his own money to boot, just to maintain day-to-day operations at 38 Studios. Sorry, hold on. Did I say $75 million in Rhode Island loans? Is that right? Actually, make that $49 million, since Rhode Island tax laws dictated that $26 million of those dollars go straight back to the Rhode Island state banks. The financial position of 38 Studios was quickly becoming unsustainable. Gears needed to turn very soon in order to get Copernicus out the door so they could start to recoup some of those costs. It's a little difficult to handle, Mr. Schilling. So how exactly did 38 Studios cover all of these costs while actually delivering the product that was promised? How did they pay that loan back? Project Copernicus was at least shaping up to be pretty neat. Well, I mean, based on whatever fleeting glimpses of the project that were available to the public eye. Footage shown in a concept video for Project Copernicus revealed an in-game map, a moodily lantern-lit lavender forest leading to a gothic castle, tree settlements, expansive cave cities, midnight markets, the works! A fully fledged game world that would take years to complete for release. Uh-oh. And as it happened, 38 Studios only having one project in development that would take years to recoup costs is a situation that those experienced in the games industry would call bad. 38 Studios, bleeding money fast, needed something, anything to pump up their portfolio during Copernicus development. You know, just to keep the lights on. This is where Kingdoms of Amalur had come in. The only actual game that 38 Studios ever released. Kingdoms of Amalur was already in production under an entirely different developer for years in a totally unrelated process to Curt Schilling's own efforts by company Big Huge Games, then under contract by publisher THQ. Kingdoms of Amalur had cost too much and taken too long. They basically just wanted to nip it in the bud so they didn't have to lose money on its continued development. And a quiet, smothering death by a publisher was pretty much what was in store for Big Huge Games, until 38 Studios saw this as an opportunity. Kingdoms of Amalur was a game that was mostly done. Why not just save Big Huge Games from closing by using some of that sweet Rhode Island cash to buy them out, finish production of the game, and then tie it in to Project Copernicus by basically rewriting the game to fit entirely within Copernicus lore, and then actually make the studio some money before Copernicus was done. In addition to that, Electronic Arts signed on as co-publisher of the game, helping to fund it with $28 million of their own dollars, as well as lending their own man manpower over to Big Huge Games to actually finally finish the project. Side note, Big Huge Games is also responsible for one of my favorite RTS series, Rise of Nations, and the same engine was used for both Rise of Nations and Kingdoms of Amalur, which is not really relevant to the rest of this. I just thought that was, like, kind of weird, but in a cool way. Anyway, Kingdoms of Amalur was then released in February 2012, but by this point, things were already kind of going downhill. The game was okay when it came out. That's not the point. The problem was, this was one small shovel full of dirt to fill in the massive gaping open-bore mine that 38 Studios was helplessly flailing around in. But to employees who weren't in the loop on the back financial end of things, it gave them, a sense of false hope, basically. Executives had started to realize that the release window for Copernicus was pretty far out still. And in January 2012, so 1 month before the release of Kingdoms of Amalur, 38 Studios employee Andy Johnson found himself at the center of this problem. He was normally a translator for the game, helping bring the content of Project Copernicus into other languages. And so as part of his job, he basically needed to understand the progress that was being made. His prognosis was not good. The game wasn't even close to release. He wrote this report and basically just thought, oh yeah, everybody already knows this. This is whatever. This is just standard operating procedure. And then the next week, he slapped that release estimate onto the desk of 38 Studios vice presidents. And then they slammed the door shut and point blank asked him, has anyone else seen this? Which is not a good sign. You don't want that. Word slowly spread to the other executives who one by one would visit Johnson at his office going, this is not good, dude. You can't be serious. Oh, fuck. Oh, shit. Andy Johnson, later interviewed by Bloomberg, had this to say about it. I was like, oh crap. I had just done my due diligence of trying to figure out sizing scope, estimate time for all this stuff. I felt like I'd uncovered some secret. Shortly after this report, 38 Studios put a flat-out hiring freeze into effect. Johnson couldn't do his job without more people, so he kind of just idly lay there as the company slowly fell into full-blown panic. On the normal job side of 38 Studios, meaning non-executives, the actual workers, they had no idea their proverbial ship was headed directly for an iceberg. No one told them! Everybody who knows about this report is not talking about it. The people working on Project Copernicus had ambitious ideas for their game, which is kind of sad. These included persistent game states impacting the entire game world if one group of players defeated a boss. It's the kind of stuff that falls within World of Warcraft's blind spots. For all their efforts, workers were rewarded by they weren't even being paid. Payday didn't come because the company was being run that badly. Unfortunately, 38 Studios was doing so poorly that it did not matter how good anyone was at their jobs. Hey, remember that trailer for Copernicus I mentioned with all the footage? Turns out, no one got paid for that. Developers put that together in a vain attempt to get outside capital to invest in their project, trying for free to save their jobs and the company. Pretty sad. They were in a state that they never lived in before. They had no choice but to try to work on what they were already hired for. Governor Lincoln Chafee, who had taken office by that point, revealed to reporters that Rhode Island money was the only thing keeping 38 Studios in business at all. This scared everybody. In addition, he also leaked other details of Copernicus's development, including its new projected release date of June 2013. He said all this because he didn't like the deal, and he felt that exposing it would be the best way to quickly deal with it so the state could move on. Chafee's leaks scared prospective investors, meaning that video that employees made was now totally pointless. It scared employees, it scared taxpayers, it scared Lincoln Chafee. And at that point, it was obvious that changes needed to be made in the development of Copernicus. Something had to be done to even attempt to right the ship. Fucking obviously. And so basically, everything hinged on the sales of Kingdoms of Amalur. Employees hoped that in this moment of crisis, the sales of Kingdoms of Amalur would keep the company afloat for at least another fiscal year. That Curt Schilling would pull another bloody sock moment where everyone thought they were fucked because wow, what a gnarly injury. But no, it actually turns out everything will be fine in the end. That, sadly, was not meant to be. And just a few short months after Kingdoms of Amalur came out, an email was sent to every 38 Studios employee, as well as those working at Big Huge Games, because remember, they were also hitched to this project. That email read,
"The company is experiencing an economic downturn. To avoid further losses and possibility of retrenchment, the company has decided that a company-wide layoff is absolutely necessary. These layoffs are non-voluntary and non-disciplinary. This is your official notice of layoff. Effective today, Thursday, May 24th, 2012.
Project Copernicus was dead. But what exactly does that mean for workers who moved all the way to fucking Rhode Island to work on it? Because the company agreed to pay mortgages until the old houses of the employees were sold, right? Well, a lot of those houses weren't sold and the company had just run out of money, which meant those poor bastards who moved are now back on the hook for their original mortgage, and now they had no job and therefore no money to pay those mortgages with. Benefits too. Medical benefits were also cut. I can't believe this happened. That is such a fuck you to all of those people who trusted Curt Schilling with their futures. Evidently, Curt Schilling had no earthly idea how to run a business. But at least Curt Schilling had enough balls to tell his employees directly, right? Actually, no, it was his wife's uncle who was also involved in the project as an executive. His wife's uncle. And imagine experiencing this firsthand as an employee. This famous, rich athlete pulled out all the stops. He paid off your mortgage, gave you extended benefits, all that jazz, all with the goal of pulling off this surprise upset World of Warcraft killing game that would just make everybody rich. He has this clutch infusion of Rhode Island cash. And then it just kind of falls the fuck apart. Curt Schilling running a video game company? Why? He's a baseball guy. Why would he know what he's doing? Oh, he had pioneer spirit. He had a big idea. Wow, killer. There was nothing behind it the entire time. Not only that, but a translation guy did a routine check and everyone in the entire corporate structure was like, bro, what? It's done! It's done! It's fucked! 38 Studios have real fucking people behind it, real people who tried their hardest, and it just blew up in their goddamn faces. Think about how that would feel. Imagine being Don Carcieri. God! Andy's racist. Curt Schilling is super racist. I've been holding back on it. He's racist. I really can't overstate how colossal of a fuck-up this was, and how much the fallout of 38 exploding impacted the officials who had overseen it. At this point, can I just be real? This guy is very stupid. He's a dumb guy. His company had taken that seed money from the state of Rhode Island, as well as parts of Curt Schilling's own personal fortune, and turned it into $150 million of debt. That's how deep they were in the hole. Furthermore, the state of Rhode Island, who is now on the hook for that lost money, was not in any way contacted in advance of the email announcing the cessation of operations at 38 Studios. So that email was a surprise to literally everybody except for executives. It was around this time that Rhode Island state officials would realize the true scope of the 38 Studios disaster. Lawmakers had agreed to a full post-mortem of 38 Studios to figure out what went wrong, what could be done about it, and who was to blame. The Economic Development Corporation, which is the Rhode Island organization that actually was responsible for the loan, experienced several shakeups following this disaster. The director straight up resigned early in May 2012. The state asked for other members to resign if they had supported 38 Studios, and Governor Chafee held a press conference about the catastrophe. When questioned at this press conference about Kingdoms of Amalur, Governor Chafee said,
"The game failed. The game failed. That was integral to the success of the company."
He then elaborated on this point, stating that the company would have needed to have sold 3 million copies of Kingdoms of Amalur since February just to, break even and keep the company afloat. and it had only sold 1.2 million. And of course, the games media at large had started to report on this. They had plenty of material, considering that employees no longer had any reason to stay loyal to 38 Studios. One such article, titled 38 Studios Spouse Speaks Out, details the experiences of someone who's married to a former employee of 38 Studios. And let me just say, before I get further into this, it's kind of heartbreaking. Like, people really put their trust into this venture, and this fucking charlatan just took advantage of that. Some employees moved back. To no one's surprise, unfortunately, a few were stranded, now stuck in Rhode Island, a state with very few video game career opportunities. To their credit, a few people on Twitter, mostly game devs themselves, started the hashtag 38jobs. It was meant to be a networking opportunities for ex-employees of 38 Studios so that they could find a new job in the game industry. But that wasn't all. Rhode Island state representatives actually visited the offices of the now defunct 38 Studios in an attempt to help out those stranded, newly unemployed workers. However, it seems that most of this help was just instructing them on how to apply for unemployment assistance. Thanks, guys. I'm sure that was appreciated. Staffers reportedly were a little more helpful in giving them canned food, which is really goes to show how desperate it was over there. And what about Mr. Curt Schilling? How did he fare in the wake of this disaster? Remember how at the end of his baseball career he had like over $100 million? Well, only 4 years later, that had dwindled down to $1 million, which sounds like a really big loss, but compare that to the workers he fucked over, I don't give a fuck. Fuck him. Plus, he's still a millionaire. Again, fuck him. Like, maybe this comes off as harsh or whatever, but I don't really care, because the people who he fucked over were normal people who didn't have the privilege of a baseball career, who didn't have, like, a media presence in any way, and they can't make money off of just doing interviews where they just say, like, racist shit, which is basically what he does now. Or, you know, in a stunning display of just a complete and total lack of self-awareness to, like, any extent, writing whiny as hell editorials blaming Lincoln Chafee of all people for the failure of his extremely mismanaged company, which had only come about in the first place because he thought he could kill World of Warcraft in the 2000s at its height, a feat which to this day has not been done. Just the sheer hubris on display from this guy. And Curt Schilling, I might add, is very vocal about how he believes in personal responsibility and paying your loans. But I guess that only applies to those with student loans, huh? Dickhead. And he'll also do this annoying thing where he'll say, I take full responsibility, and then spend the rest of the fucking article just being like, actually, these are all the outside reasons why we failed. These people just wanted to see us fail, blah, blah, fucking blah. He's allergic to taking accountability for his own massive fuck up. But hey, don't take it from me. Take it from a former executive of 38 Studios who asked directly on Facebook, are you going to admit that your stupid hubris, pride, and arrogance would not allow you to accept that we failed and help shut it down with dignity? Yeah, I mean, well put. He also blamed bigger studios for not swooping in and doing a Deus Ex Machina and saving the entire thing. And I can't fucking imagine why this, like, clearly, obviously failing company wouldn't be bought by a bigger one. Sorry, I'm just, like, so annoyed at this guy. He sucks so fucking bad, man. You don't know how hard it was for at the beginning of this video not to just immediately leap into fuck this guy sucks shit, he's the worst. At some point, the various stewards of 38 Studios were then individually sued by Rhode Island for, I mean, just take your fucking pick. And they each had to cough up an indeterminate amount of money. Curt Schilling had to pay about $2.5 million. That's at least some solace. And another thing that really sucks about this is that the employees that weren't paid before, it took them 9 more years to get paid just what they were owed for like their hours spent at 38 Studios. Except some of them got as low as 14 fucking % of the money they were owed for work they did. Like, oh my fucking god, man. Most developers who were involved in this mess have now gotten back on their feet years later. Curt Schilling remains a small man who is incapable of character growth. I mean, if I have to end on, like, a positive note, Kingdoms of Amalur is, like, okay, you should play that, I guess. The writing gets a little boring, but the gameplay is fine. Bye.